rise for the Honorable Judge Tahir Pasta.
Please be seated. Court is now in session. I see that all parties are here except the defendant. Can you please call him in? We will now start the hearing for the case of Emrit of Abu Dhabi versus Zabiullah Tofu. I implore the jury to hang on to every word as their decision will be important for this human. We will start by hearing the opening statement. Will the attorney of the prosecution please come forward with their opening statements?
Yes, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen, the defendant, Mr. Zabiullah, is currently under arrest and is suspected of theft. He was caught and arrested at his former workplace, in the offices of Khalid & Co. in Abu Dhabi, where he was reported for theft by his former boss, Mr. Khalid, who is a respectable man of his community. Members of the jury, I would like to say, what else evidence do you need than by the fact that Mr. Zabiullah is an expatriate from Pakistan, a person of dubious character at best. As the prosecution attorney, it is my job to prove without a shred of reasonable doubt that he is guilty. And as a jury, it is your job to convict him. I implore you to make the right decision, because if you don't make the right decision today, maybe he will do a robbery next. Maybe he'll attack a person soon after, or even lead up to murder. And that is exactly why we must make sure that it doesn't come to that. That'll be all.
You may return to your seat. Will the defense please come forward and present their opening statements?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I will just say this. My client is innocent because he has never committed a crime in his entire life. The prosecution mentioned that he is an expat from Pakistan, but I think he failed to mention that he supports 5 members of his family all on his own. He has worked and toiled under a corrupt and petty employer who would just send his own employee to jail while knowing perfectly well that he is innocent. I will prove his innocence to you today. Let us all be warned that setting the precedent of sending an innocent man to jail will have dire consequences for our society. That will be all, Your Honor.
We will now move on to testimonies and evidence. Will the prosecution take the floor and present their first evidence?
Yes, Your Honor. The prosecution would like to call its primary witness.
Granted. Please take the oath. Do you solemnly swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may begin your examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Please state your name.
Khalid Khan.
And what do you do?
I am the owner of Khalid & Co.
I see. Oh, clean track record and all. Do you know this man?
Yes, he's my former employee.
Oh, so he's working under you. And how long have you known this man?
Long enough.
Long enough? Can you just answer the question, please?
I've known him for about 2 years, but that doesn't matter. Just look at his face. He looks like a thief.
Objection, Your Honor. The statement of the witness is irrelevant to the question, and it's a personal opinion.
Sustained. The witness will get his emotions under control and will only answer what is being asked.
All right, moving along. Mr. Khalid, are you the one who reported Mr. Zabiullah for theft?
Yes, I was the one.
And on what grounds, on what basis are you making this accusation?
My money kept disappearing, and like I said before, all of them are like that. I've heard two others like him who stole money from their employer and then ran away.
Objection, Your Honor. The witness is making personal remarks.
Sustained. The witness will remain under control or will be removed from the stand.
Now, Mr. Khalid. Is it just your gut feeling that is accusing this guy, or do you actually have evidence against him?
I have actual proof against him.
Oh, is that so?
I have him stealing from me on tape.
He's lying. I haven't still.
I will not allow people to talk in my court.
The
The defense has been
He asked
warned.
me to take them.
The prosecution may resume.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now then, let me just make this clear. Mr. Khalid, you claim that you have a video that actually shows proof of him stealing from you on tape. Is that true?
Yes, it's true.
All right. So, Your Honor, the prosecution would like to submit a key evidence. A video from the surveillance tapes at the office of Khalid and Co.
Accepted. Bailiff, if you would please.
Well, that is pretty conclusive evidence. Caught him red-handed, Mr. Zabiullah, stealing from his employer on tape. And I would call that very conclusive evidence. No more questions, Your Honor.
We will now move on. Would the defense like to cross-examine the witness?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Khalid, I have just one question for you. How would you describe your relationship with your employee?
Objection. The question is unrelated to the case.
Overruled. The witness will answer the question.
I don't understand the question.
It's quite simple. Let me rephrase it for you. How would you describe your relationship with your employees? Is it bad? Do you have a bad relationship with your employees?
Objection. The defense is asking and leading questions.
Sustained. The defense will revoke the question and refrain from asking any more questions. Any more such questions.
No more questions, Your Honor.
Very well. Does the prosecution have any more questions for the witness?
No, Your Honor.
Very well. The witness may step down.
The prosecution rests this case.
We will now move on to testimony and evidence from the defense. Please present your witness.
The defense calls its witness.
Do you solemnly swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
The defense may start.
Can you please state your name for the record?
My name is Talha Konyank.
And what do you do?
I'm currently employed at Khalid and Company.
Well, do you recognize the man sitting over there?
Yes.
How do you know him?
Well, he is my former co-worker.
I see. Mr. Talha, how would you define the relationship of the defendant with your boss, Mr. Khalid?
In a word, bad.
How so? Can you elaborate?
Well, they were always fighting.
Why? Why do you think that is?
Because Zabiullah doesn't like him.
Objection, Your Honor. The witness is presenting his own opinion as fact.
Sustained. The witness will answer objectively without personal bias.
Okay. Let me rephrase that. Why do you think Mr. Khalid doesn't like the defendant?
Well, for one, he always comes and gives him hard time about this and that. Almost every day, picks a fight with him over the smallest things, like coffee or whatever.
And you have seen this happen?
Yes. Many times, almost everybody at the company has seen him do it.
This is a very important thing. I see. No more questions for now, Your Honor.
Would the prosecution like to cross-examine the witness?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Talha, how long have you known Mr. Khalid?
A few years.
Few. Can you go on?
Around 2.
Interesting. And how long have you known Mr. Zabiullah?
Well, 5 years.
5 years. That's okay. That's perfectly fine. Now I heard you went to the same school as the defendant.
Yes,
Is that true?
it's true.
Okay. And I've also heard that you are friends with the defendant?
Yes, I'm a friend of his.
All right. And I would also like to ask you if you are the man who recommended the defendant to do his job.
I did.
Okay, well, that is exactly my point. The prosecution and the defense has brought a witness who is friends with the defendant, who has been friends longer with him for 5 years than with the employer. So I would like to keep that in mind while making the decision. That'll be all, Your Honor.
Very well. Does the defendant wish to ask any more questions to the
Yes,
Witness,
Your Honor.
you may proceed.
Now, Mr. Talha, I want you to tell me a bit more about your job. What exactly do you do?
Well, lots of paperwork. I go through all the paperwork generated in the office. I also take care of some of the machines and
The
computers.
machines? Isn't there like an IT department who takes care of all that?
We don't have an IT department.
Come again?
We do not have an IT department.
Your offices don't have an IT. Well, I'm confused here. Who exactly takes care of all the surveillance and the video cameras?
The boss does.
The boss.
Yes.
Your boss takes care of all the video surveillance and maintains it.
Yes.
So let me get this straight. If he, for example, wanted to, since he is the only one who has the access to the video, if he wanted to take the video and perhaps delete a portion of it or change it somehow.
Objection, Your Honor. The defense is clearly asking loaded questions from the witness.
Sustained. The defense to stop any such attempts or will be held contempt of court.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. No more questions.
The witness may step down from the stand. Will the defendant please
rests his
take
case.
this? Will the defendant please take the stand?
Yes, Your Honor.
Now then, Mr. Zabibullah, how do you plead?
I'm not guilty, Your Honor.
I see. Does the defendant have some closing remarks for us?
Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to say that I have been wrongly accused of the theft by my former employee. I did not steal any money from him. I was just getting some money from him as he instructed me. I have to support my family back. I am innocent. That is all, Your Honor.
Well, you may step down from your seat and
Thank
go
you.
proceed to your seat. We'll now take the closing arguments. Will the defense please come forward and present their closing arguments?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I would just like you to have a look at the face of my client. Look at that poor, wretched face. Look at the lines of hard work etched onto his face. That, my friends, is the face of an hard-working, honest man. A face of a man who takes care of his family. An innocent man. I want you to remember the tyranny and the injustice that has been wrought upon him by his former employer. There is not a single piece of conclusive evidence against my client. Sure, there is a piece of video, but video evidence can be tampered with, which is why my client is innocent. Even if he did steal. Even if he did steal, would you really put this man in jail? Would you really put this man in jail? No, I don't think so. I think you should go for an acquittal and acquit this man of any of his crimes so that another family may not lose their breadwinner. That would be all, Your Honor.
The prosecution may take and make its closing remarks.
Members of the jury, an acquittal? The defense would have you acquit this man. Maybe we should go ahead and acquit all the unfortunate people for their crimes. But that is not exactly right now, is it? Is that not too? Isn't that too unreasonable? This man clearly stole from his employer and was caught red-handed on tape. The proof of his guilt was presented to you in raw CCTV footage at Khalid & Co. The money is missing. Nobody else but Mr. Zabiullah, the defendant, was seen to be taking that money. Hence, there is no one else but the defendant who could have stolen the money. The defense wants you to drum up support for the defendant by asking his close friends who've known him for 5 years to testify for him. But do not let that cloud your judgment. I hope that you will decide on a fair and impartial decision based on all the facts that were presented today. That will be all.
We will now adjourn for a few minutes while the jury deliberates and decides on their decision. The head juror, Ms. Daniela Zainamek, will lead the jury to discuss among themselves and come to an unbiased decision. When you do, please write down your verdict on a piece of paper. In case of no decision being reached, I will personally hand out my verdict. We are adjourned.
Could you ask all of them for their...
Yes, sure. Okay. All right. So everybody, can I have raise of hands? Yes. Guilty, please.
Guilty. You
court is now in session. It seems the jury has made the decision. The court finds the defendant guilty. In accordance to the penal code section made up, I hereby proclaim the defendant, Mr. Zabiullah, guilty of crime of theft and sentence him to 5 years of jail. If any parties would appeal to this decision, we'll have a hearing later in the date. We are adjourned for now.